Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our weekly live question and answer. You'll notice we're in a slightly different location today. We were having some trouble last week and this week as well, too, so we had to switch locations. So thanks for joining us. Every week we meet here at 9:45 a.m. Pacific, and I'm usually joined by Dr. Rita Ellithorpe, our medical director and founder here at Tustin Longevity Center. And we look for your questions. You can ask those in the chat section off to the right here. You can also email your questions to us at office@tlcdoctors.com. We will make sure you put in the subject line question for live Q&A, and those questions will be sent over to me, and we will ask those on the following week. So, Dr. Reed, thanks for your time today. Thanks for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Do you want to jump into any information that you have for the audience, or should we start with some questions?
Well, I have some information that I'd like to share.
Okay.
So again, anything that we share is not medical advice personally, but it's general in nature. I'm sure all of you have heard by now in the past 2 days that Pfizer has come up with a vaccine in a phase 3 study that is 90% effective, is how they're broadcasting this. And so I have here their personal newsletter from Pfizer, and actually this was created in Germany by a pharmaceutical company called BioNTech, BioNTech, and Pfizer is the kind of overseer of BioNTech. So the title of their newsletter is Pfizer and BioNTech announced vaccine candidate against COVID-19 achieved success in first interim analysis from phase 3 study. And what is this interim analysis? Well, the Centers for Disease Control here and the NIH want a vaccine that is at least 60% effective in trying to prevent the disease that you're vaccinating against. And this, if it's 90%, it will certainly pass the muster. What they have as a goal is to enroll 43,538 total patients. They started this July 27th of this year, 2020. Of that, they have achieved 38,955. Of that 38,955, they split them into 2 groups. One was placebo, the other got the vaccination. And it's a series of 2 vaccinations, 30 micrograms each, between 21 days apart. And in that period of time, roughly a little over 19,000 are in each of the arms of the 38,900 that they recruited. And out of that group of patients they know who got the actual vaccination, they have 9 actually got the COVID, even though they were vaccinated. 94 total have come down with the COVID positive test. So out of 164 that were total confirmed to have COVID, 94 are positive with the disease, of which 9 came from the vaccinated group. That means 10% came down with it in the vaccinated arm, 90% did not. So that's where you're getting this 90% effective information. And what this is a messenger RNA vaccine. There's never been one like it before. Moderna is also working on this. Not all, there's about 100 companies around the world trying to come up with their vaccine. And out of that group that is doing a messenger RNA, this is one of them, Pfizer BioNTech. So what is a messenger RNA vaccine? Actually, you are getting a part of the actual DNA, rather RNA of the vaccine for the spike protein part of the messenger RNA. So what they're doing is giving you a piece, they say, of the messenger RNA for building the spike protein. And when you're injected with that, the hope is that this will be recognized then down the road by your immune system as foreign, and that you will make antibodies against it. So should you come into contact with COVID-19 down the road, you will have a heads up in your T cells and memory cells. Although we do see a good number of research showing, and I've reported on this before, of messenger, T cell memory cells in your immune system that are actually capable of recognizing the COVID-19, and may be why the vast majority of people do quite well. So that's their newsletter. What I have here is an entire breakdown of the PDF of their research, which we're going through right now, because I have concerns about a very brand new vaccine. Messenger RNA is quite different. It's never been done before. So I'm trying to look through this as we talk.
Well, thank you for that.
The other thing is, I thought I would do a little review. There is an article that the Centers for Disease Control put out called "How Deadly Was the 2019-2020 Flu Season?" How deadly was the 2019-2020 flu season? And the preliminary data suggests there was an estimated 24,000 to 62,000 flu deaths. Now we're talking flu, seasonal flu, influenza. And this is not finalized, but they feel that somewhere between 39 and 56 million flu illnesses have occurred this year. Out of that, 18 to 26 million flu medical visits have occurred. And out of that, maybe 410,000 to 740,000 hospitalizations have occurred from this. And as we know, the flu certainly is more deadly, because 179 flu-associated pediatric deaths occurred. But what I thought was interesting in the CDC article is that the CDC uses a mathematical formula to estimate the flu burden in the United States. It's based on approximately 8.5% of the population, or about 27 million people. And they've used this model since 2010.
Right.
So it isn't necessarily an accurate data collection process, but rather an estimate of 8.5% of the population. Then I looked at the Centers for Disease Control, and I looked at deaths and mortality in general, just to give us a reference point. In the United States, per year, and the latest data they have is 2018, the number of deaths were 2,839,205, or roughly 3 million deaths, close to 3 million deaths in 2018. Heart disease accounted for about 656,000, cancer 600,000, accidents of all nature, any kind of unintentional accident, about 170,000, lower respiratory tract illnesses, 160,000, stroke, close to 150,000, Alzheimer's, 122,000, diabetes, about 85,000. Here's the influenza and pneumonia, they're combining them, 60,000, kidney nephrotic syndrome, 51,000, and then suicide, 48,000, roughly 49. These are for the leading causes, and suicide is in this group. And so that was for the year of 2018. And so the COVID case count, and we're not concerned about case count, we're only concerned about hospitalizations and death.
Right.
The case count in the United States is 272. The deaths are 239,000. And you can easily put that in perspective and understand why the total deaths for the year really have not changed. There really hasn't been more loss of life in this past year. Not that we marginalize any loss of life,
right,
but that's the data that we have for the leading causes. Now, let's look back for a few years. I have 3 as an example. I have the burden of estimates of deaths from the CDC from the flu from 2012 to 2013 season. And in all ages, there were estimated 33,679,000 cases. That was 2012 to 2013, with about 43,000 deaths. Then in 2014 to 2015 flu season, all ages, about 30,165,000, and there were about 51,376 deaths, again, just for flu. And then the 28 to 29 flu season had in it, and I think I referred to this again, 35 million and 16.5 million medical visits, 490,000 hospitalizations, 34,200 deaths.
And this is in the United States.
All in the United States. So we have to put all of this into perspective and realize that this has not mounted to things that would overwhelm our healthcare system. The numbers don't support that our healthcare infrastructure is threatened at all. And I would like to see more conversation about prevention. So I think we have volumes of literature talking about the benefit of vitamin D, quercetin, hydroxychloroquine, zinc, ivermectin, remdesivir, all these wonderful things, vitamin C, hydroxylation, all these things, there should be much more conversation, because once again, in our clinic here, I know of no patients of mine that have had any COVID-19 cases. And so we do preventative medicine where we stress every patient to be on vitamin D. We've always used doses between 5,000, 15,000 range. We've always put them on a multi-mineral vitamin that is rich in zinc and other trace minerals. We've all given them opportunity to have high-dose vitamin C drips and chelation. We know the diabetic and the cardiovascular disease with obesity. We've always been low carb and so forth. So I want to see more prevention discussion before we talk about taking unknown vaccines, you know, that have never been formulated in a messenger RNA. So I'm going to be scrutinizing this study on my free time here at this tomb, you might say.
Well, that sounds like some fun reading ahead.
Yeah, and we'll look at that. But once again, 3 cheers to preventative medicine.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the cure cannot be worse than the disease.
Right.
Okay, well, thanks for putting that in perspective and for reminding us hospitalizations and death numbers in the United States. It really helps frame up what our medical care system is capable of in a regular year. Mm-hmm. And of course, the news media it's always hyping, you know, the extremes and the badness makes headlines. But it's reassuring to see that, you know, we have capabilities of dealing with these things, and yet some of these diseases that are preventable, like heart disease, even cancer, Alzheimer's, we can certainly do a better job there. But we haven't made such a big case about let's stop, you know, tobacco, let's stop drinking, let's really look at our diet.
And the deaths from auto accidents.
And auto accidents. Right.
And suicides.
Right. Okay, well, great information. With the time remaining, let's jump into questions. I see in the chat section that we're getting quite a few there.
Okay.
We have a question from 6 million. This looks like a follow-up from last week. So regarding gestational diabetes, she asks, will doing low carb give me false positives for both the established gestational diabetes 1 hour and 3 hour tests? I don't want to compare myself, but in general, I've been eating cleaner and low carb compared to my friend who has been eating a modern Mexican-American diet, and she didn't get diabetes, but I did. Does this make sense?
It's always good to be lower carb because the society, and I'm assuming you're here in the United States of America, we have a excess of cheap, valueless, nutritionally dead, valueless, void foods out there. And the most dense foods, rich in vitamins, both fat soluble and minerals, are the proteins and the fats as well. Now, I don't believe in taking the glucose tolerance test. I don't believe in giving a harmful substance like glucose.
Right. I know with pregnancy, they often in the United States here require the mother to take an initial, blood test, and then if they see something there of concern, they will order a glucose tolerance test to see if gestational diabetes is in play.
And I would assume, I don't know the statistics, but I would say that is on the rise. More and more young mothers are near to diabetes today because I'm seeing this as a national crisis, more and more obesity and diabetes.
Right.
So this is epidemic. So
why would one mother get gestational diabetes and another wouldn't? Is it very closely related to diet? Is it genetic? Do we really know what causes gestational diabetes?
I think it's our diet in large part. Now, I also know that blood type has a impact on it, and I know your state of activity. So if you're sitting around on social media staring at your phone all the time or your computers, you're less active than people would have been years ago.
Right.
So it's your level of activity, it's the way you've been eating, the way you were raised to eat, and type of foods rich in carbs. And it also has impact with your own blood type, and then I would say remotely diabetes. But I think the environment is the largest component. The best thing to do is to eat healthy proteins and fats, salads and complex carbohydrate vegetables, and be done with the rice and the beans and tortillas and all these cheap carb components, and just stick with chicken, fish, turkey, meat, pork, salad, and vegetables like broccoli, asparagus, green beans, Brussels sprouts, spinach, and butter them up. And then you should do well and take a walk every day, because you don't want that excess weight during your pregnancy. It's going to be enough on your body to carry a natural pregnancy, let alone extra weight.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. Okay, next question is, I heard there's no such thing as bad cholesterol and that the establishment doctors diagnose people with. Can you give a brief overview of what it is and what we should really be worried about?
Well, if you take in more bread, pasta, rice, bean, and corns, and juice, and soda pops, and latte sugared up drinks, that sugar and fructose sugar comes into your body at such a high rate because it's quickly absorbed. Fats and proteins have to go through digestion. They're more slowly absorbed and dealt with, but sugars are quickly absorbed. This is an alarm for the body, and then insulin shoots out, and it tries to get the cells to take in the glucose, and the liver is the only place that fructose can be metabolized. It's just like a toxin, and high fructose corn syrup is hidden in almost all packaged food. It has like 56 different names to disguise it. It's very addicting. When the body can't utilize that shock of sugar and fruit sugar that quickly, then it starts turning it into little fats. And the name of that little fat is called a triglyceride. And then you fill up with fat in your blood, which is a triglyceride, which always precedes damage to the cell membranes throughout your body. And it clogs up the capillaries, so the cells are hypoxic, choking. That's why you're tired after a turkey dinner or a big meal or a big chocolate malt shake or something. What that does then is it hurts the cell membranes, and those fragments are picked up by your metabolism in your liver. Seeing cell membrane damage is a key to produce cholesterol to try and repair the damage from the diet you took from that high sugar, high starch, high fructose corn syrup meal. And you do it over and over and over throughout the day. And so that accumulates, and then your cholesterol starts going up.
Interesting. So you're relating it more to the carbohydrates and sugar diet that we're eating. So eating foods that contain cholesterol, you would argue, does not give you bad cholesterol, or
absolutely
eating cholesterol,
not.
Dietary cholesterol does not lead to lab cholesterol.
Absolutely. I think that's so clearly been published and studied out the wazoo. The thing is, you cannot play around and say, well, I'll eat all this fat and stuff
and then throw in some sugar
and then put sugar on top of it. Then you'll oxidize the fat, which is harmful.
Okay.
So sorry, folks, you just have to learn to eat well, and you have to learn to self-discipline yourself, deny yourself, and restrict your treat to a specific sequence. Like, I'll only have a treat on Saturday night to Sunday night, period. The rest of the week, no go. And mankind never had this before, unless you were a king or a queen who had all this money and chefs and bakers cooking for you. And in the old textbooks, you see the fat-bellied king with his gouty toe up on a pillow, you know? So we know the truth.
And our patients who control their diet, eat a low carbohydrate, little to no sugars, you do not steer them away from fearing foods that contain cholesterol.
Never, never. We are made of fat and protein, and we need this.
Okay. Great question. All right, let's see what we have next here. If someone tests positive for COVID-19 and is asymptomatic, are they contagious?
I think that's been clearly addressed, and the answer is no. The test is in doubt. So what is that test telling you? You have antibodies if you did the serum antibody test. So great, you have antibodies. You are certainly well past any time frame where there might have been that 5 to 7 day window when you had first been exposed to it. And now it takes antibodies, a week or two to start making the IgM, then the IgGs 2-3 weeks, and then they last, we understand, for months now. What is the PCR test? The PCR is a wildly in amplification, looking for a needle in a haystack fragment of a coronavirus. And it may not be the Corona-19 virus. It could be the coronavirus from other cold.
In fact, didn't the developer or one of the scientists who developed the PCR test said that this should not be used to diagnose?
Correct. Dr. Mullis got the Nobel Prize, I think, around 1992 or 4 for developing the PCR polymerase chain reaction to amplify DNA during the big genome project. And in that, he said, never use this for diagnosing anything. So what are we doing with it? We're using it to diagnose cases of COVID-19. And it is not necessarily valid. If someone comes to me and they are sick and they have antibodies, one might assume it is, but even still, you're not absolutely sure it's COVID-19. It's presumptive.
Really, the only way to truly diagnose a viral disease is by culture, right?
By culture. And who's doing the culture? Almost no one. Almost no one. And the virus mutates over time. So again, when you say who had the flu, the CDC uses a algorithm, a mathematical estimate to just say, oh, 8.5% of the population is estimated to come down with this cold every year. Well, you know, I'm sorry, I get concerned about making public policies over algorithms.
Right. But the short answer to the question, can you be asymptomatic and contagious, is yes.
I don't
No?
think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. When you start seeing a fever and symptoms and you're achy, then you know you're ill and you should stay home and not be intimate with people and so forth. And we've known this since we were little kids. Grandma taught us this. Grandma taught us this. So if you are symptomatic, stay home, wash your hands, rest, let yourself heal for a few days, and then move forward.
Okay. We have just a few minutes left. Let's see if we have another question here. So Henry asks, I heard President Trump was taking melatonin as a preventative along with other nutraceuticals you mentioned. Good advice?
Melatonin helps you sleep deeply. Melatonin is a antioxidant. Melatonin helps put you in a deeper state of sleep, during which time hopefully you didn't eat a late dinner and your immune system repairs itself. So yes, it's great advice.
Okay, so yes, could be helpful. Sleep is when we repair, our bodies go into self-repair, so melatonin can certainly be helpful. And we do have products here that we recommend that have melatonin in or stimulate melatonin. Okay, I've got a question here. What is R messenger RNA? So what is the R in RNA? What does RNA stand for? Something nucleic acid?
Messenger RNA, it's mRNA, okay? mRNA.
Versus DNA.
Right. And what this is your nucleus in your cell has hundreds of thousands of millions of data points for transcription. And if a invading subject fragment locks onto a cell membrane, this should tell the cell that it's being invaded. A part of the DNA should open up and allow transcription by messenger RNA to make a copy. Then it'll move out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm, where ribosomes will copy that to make proteins that will attack the element there. Also, you can have DNA made. So you have two mechanisms of copying for DNA and copying for RNA, and converting that into protein sequences, information packets. And this is what COVID-19 is harming. It is harming our messenger, our ribosomal copying of messenger RNA, taking over the reproduction of the viral replication versus the things we need to do to maintain our own health. When it takes it over, then your cell is not able to do housekeeping, so to say, but also those fragments then harm other aspects of cell membrane immune defense, so that recruiting your neighbors and your T cells and your immune system is inhibited. And therefore, this ivermectin and this new messenger RNA vaccine is designed to attack, help your body attack the spike proteins on the virus, the coronavirus, so that you have a leg up, you might say, in recognizing the spike protein. It's quite fascinating material, and thank goodness we have a lot of people who are in research looking at these things.
Okay. Well, that is just about all our time available for today. It's a little over 10:15. I do see another question there about propolis that we'll circle back to next week, 6 million. So thanks everybody for joining us. We're here every Wednesday at 9:45 a.m. Pacific until about 10:15 a.m. Pacific. Tell your friends, tell your family, bring your questions to us. You can email your questions in the middle of the week, office@tlcdoctors.com. And do us a favor, like the videos, subscribe to the channel if you're finding this content to be valuable. That gives us good feedback. You can leave your comments below. Lets us know if we should continue doing this, if we should alter it, and so on. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Alta, for your time. Really appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody.